And so if they give you, if they give you $5,000, but you really need 50, they're probably not going to be as effective. But also some funders like to work together. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but Tony Hawk Skate Park Foundation is a good example. They don't want to be the first funder. They want to close the gap. They want to be the final icing on the cake to finish that. And it's a wonderful granting opportunity, but it's also saying, hey, I can't do this alone. We need to work together to do that. So
yeah, sometimes you can kind of build projects over time. After we talked about that, I was thinking my first grant as a teacher when I was teaching, like I got a prison to actually donate a bunch of computers. But then once I got the computers, I wrote a grant for tables and desks to house them and software, and it was kind of like I could go to them and say, hey, I got all the computers, I just need this.
right, right.
So
and that's important about
so you can
identifying
kind of
the
build
need.
something over time.
Right, right, and putting just piecing it together. So, but funders they know they have the money and they have an idea about what they want to do with it. So trying to make sure that your idea fits within their guidelines, their restrictions, their kind of model is really it is that sweet spot. And so that's why finding the right funder is really key.
Yeah, great. I was thinking we could talk a little bit about how to get a grant funded. I think you have a lot of experience with this, and what makes a
Right. It does come down to, again, making sure that match, but you want to make sure that the significance is there, what you want to do. So I look at grantsmanship as persuasive writing. Grant writing, it's persuasive writing. It is almost your sales pitch. You're not there to help convince them that you're the person. You have to convey that. And so I think where a lot of people are not successful is they write up the project in a way that says, trust me, I know what I'm doing. And at the end of the day, you really need to show that you know what you're doing. So you're the person to complete this project. This is why the project is, I kind of look at it as telling a story. This is what's happening right now. So this is kind of your background information. You want to tell the story, okay, well, this is the next step. This is what's needed. This is why it's important, and I think that's key. It's the who cares. You care. You're writing the proposal. You care about it. Who else cares? Is it a community project? Is it a broader impact? Is it research, right? That may have impact down the road, or is it something that the funder can see and hold in their hand tomorrow? So, who cares? Why is this important? That significant piece is key. And then how are you going to approach it? This is why you're the person to do it, or the organization to make this happen, and who your collaborators are, and this is how much it's going to cost. There should be no surprises. And then, becoming increasingly more important is the evaluation piece. How do you know what you said you were going to do is successful? And so there's different ways to examine that and to get that across, but that really is becoming, how does the funder know that their money was well spent? So how are you going to gauge that success? What does success look like?
Yeah, and I think for a number of students, like the kind of projects they're envisioning, outreach to the community related to housing or community development, different things like that. Like, two, it's partnering with the right organization to convey, like, we're able to carry this project out. Is that
Right. They need to know that you know what you're talking about and you have the right contacts. I'm currently the vice president of the Dunkirk Foundation. I sit on their board. And one of the things we require is if there's going to be improvement on city property, we want a letter from the city council saying it's okay. And that seems very, well, of course you do. Or why wouldn't it be okay? Shouldn't the city just be okay with it? Well, no, they're not. They're elected officials. So we always require a letter saying from the city council that says, yes, you can do this improvement on city property. That's really important. So where are you going to do it? Are you building the right relationships? Is it really what's needed? If the community that you're in has a brand new library, why do you want to build a brand new library? You have to make sure that that need is there, and that it's not only what the people want, but then it also fits within the mission of the organization.
Yeah. Yeah, which is a difficult challenge sometimes, and that's one of the things I was hoping we could touch on, because where they're at, I think they're moving into the week where they're going to start writing the initial part of the narrative and kind of the needs assessment, and that's going to vary a lot depending on their projects and stuff. But I mean, I think there are some general principles with how that section aligns with other parts of the proposal.
Right, and part of that does come down to what does success look like? What do you want to do? How are you going to accomplish it? And why? What is the need? And again, of course you think there's a need. You're writing the proposal, so it's more than about you and your thoughts. You have to pull in that other information, and so as you read and you refine that section, keep thinking to yourself, who cares? Who cares about this? Is it a community project? Is it students? Is it this small organization? Is it a nonprofit? Or are you trying to make sure that people care because there is this greater need and this greater significance, kind of the greater good, per se? When I talk about evaluation and what does success look like, obviously you're talking about goals and objectives and measurable, and you want to make sure that they're SMART goals, so specific and measurable and attainable, and put a timeline on it. And what's R? Realistic. Forgot R. So SMART goals, it's always important. But I like to think about the park. I use this analysis. There's a parking garage downtown, and I read a newspaper article that the parking garage is empty most of the week. And so it was like, well, the city put up all of this money. And so I really was thinking about it. What does success look like? What was the purpose of the parking garage? Because I thought the purpose of the parking garage was to provide parking for downtown. And if that was the purpose, was to provide spaces, then the project was successful. They provided spaces for parking. But if the purpose of the project was to have a parking garage that was full 80% of the time, well, then that project is not a success. They have to figure out how to make it a success. They're not finished. And so really, what does success look like? Is success the number of people you impact? How are you going to measure that? Are you going to count people who walk through the door or participate in the program? Or back to the field trip, did the field trip happen? Did the students have a great time? Did they learn anything on their field trip? How do you know they learned something? All of those different items could lead to and say, yes, this is successful, but sometimes you almost want to look, not look backwards, but make sure as you're planning that out and you're building that significance, you're thinking, okay, what does success look like?
Right.
That's the hard thing to define.
Yeah. So I think it's good to have what your goals and your objectives of your project align with what your need is, and that you can give some sort of, ideally, some demonstration of that. And I think with what you were saying earlier, like making it compelling, like why they should care, would be things like, I mean, if they're maybe doing something for a school, like how many kids are on free and reduced lunch, how many working class families are in the community. If you can find that information that makes this compelling, like this is a really important community to help because they do have these certain needs.
Right, and it's wonderful now because a lot of that information is readily available. There's Indiana Youth Institute puts out fact books, and that kind of puts it in bite-sized chunks, but go to reputable sources and look them up. But you can find population data, you can look at the community, look at the level of like you said, free and reduced lunches is a great tool. Housing index, there's all kinds of different sources of information, so you can say, okay, this is the need that's in the community, or this is what's missing, but also this is the population that will be impacted by the dollars. And so if this is an important project and they support it, who are they supporting? Well, here's this population that you've already described.
Yeah, and developing your needs out of, or your goals out of what your needs are.
Right, right. And being realistic for what you can do for the money that you're asking.
Yeah.
It's always interesting. I'll read a proposal and then I'll get to the budget, and maybe there's travel money in there, and I'm like, what are they traveling for? That wasn't clear in their budget, or they need to
Yeah.
buy this big piece of equipment,
That's
and
another
I'm
issue.
flipping back
Yeah.
through the proposal saying, I didn't see that in here. The reviewer should be able to, as they're reading your proposal, being, okay, yeah, there's time, oh, yep, we're gonna engage some students, or, oh, we need to build something, or permits, or needs assessment, whatever those are, and they're kind of ticking these things off, so then when they get to the budget, oh, yep, there's the time, there's the student wages, there's the travel, what have you, there's no surprises. If they get to the budget and it's $500,000 and they think, well, maybe 50,000, there's obviously a disconnect. You didn't tell your story in the right way. You didn't convey. Also, a big thing I think that occurs is you try to gloss over things because you think, oh, they won't notice, and they notice.
Yeah.
If it's a
Yeah.
question, it is better to address it head on. So while we're a small grassroots organization, we're working with this larger organization until we can get our bylaws approved so we can get a 501c3. Don't just say, well, we're going to be a 501c3. Well, that's kind of the, maybe that's okay, but you want to make sure that you explain those things out and don't just assume that they won't notice.
Yeah. I think the other big challenge with needs that I've found in the past is like, it's like, you don't want to like, you want to really show need, you want to like make this compelling case, like we really, have this dire circumstance, but you don't want to make it sound like things are so bad that they're irreparable or,
Exactly. Who's at risk and who's suffering because of
Yeah.
this problem or this situation, but also you need to show that you have the capacity. This is why you are the person to fix it, or you are the organization to solve this problem. And again,
it's
you're
a
not
fixable problem.
it's fixable. It's fixable, and you know how. This is logical. Here is the next step, and that next step is absolutely what's outlined in your proposal. Or maybe there's two